Good afternoon, dear colleagues and dear students and dear guests. Welcome to yet another Cyprus Policy Center activity. Today we have a distinguished guest by the name Rok Zupančič.
Quite well, Zupančič.
Zupančič. Rok is a Marie Curie postdoctoral fellow at the Center for Southeast European Studies, University of Graz. He earned his PhD at University of Ljubljana, Faculty of Social Sciences, on the topic on conflict prevention in Kosovo and the role of international organizations in the country. Before joining University of Graz, he worked as assistant professor at University of Ljubljana, teaching the courses on international and regional security, security and international relations, common security and defense policy, security in Southeast Europe, conflict studies, theory of strategy. Between the years 2015 and 2016, he was a principal investigator of the University of Ljubljana in a Horizon 2020 project, IEC-EU, improving capabilities of the EU in conflict prevention, leading the working package on common security and defense policy missions and operations in the Balkans. So today we have the opportunity to listen to his presentation, but at the same time, I know that before coming here, I already put to him several difficult questions regarding the situation in the Balkans. As the saying goes, no free lunch. During the lunch we had, I got a huge pleasure of finding out on the first hand what is going on. So feel free also during the question and answer period to put your questions to Rob on this. So without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor, for having me here. It's the first time for me being here in the northern part of Cyprus. The reason why I offered some kind of seminar or discussion on the topic exactly here in this part of the world is that I also come from the region which suffered quite a lot from the armed conflicts. And even though I'm a Slovenian, Slovenia was not hit by, I mean, we did have a war in 1991, but we did not suffer that much comparing to the atrocities that happened in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Kosovo, and so on. So, you know, the conflicts here in Cyprus is in a way related in terms of the essence of the conflict in Kosovo and the dissolution of Yugoslavia. So this was my main motivation to come here. And as my colleague said, I'll be focusing on the Kosovo issue, but I'm very much open to answer any kind of questions you might have on the Southeastern Europe or the Western Balkans or ex-Yugoslavia and so on. So, this is overview of the lecture or discussion. I mean, I would skip some of the things to try to keep it short, about 30 minutes. Then Professor will start hitting me. Then I will know that I'll have to stop. Yeah. So this is a brief overview. First of all, I will just say a few words for those who might not be that familiar with Kosovo and the dissolution of Yugoslavia. Then to the point, the agreement between Serbia and Kosovo, the so-called Brussels Agreement, which the EU still considers as a big success, and on the strategic perspective, it is some sort of success, definitely, to bring conflicting parties to the table. But on the other hand, my main research area focuses on the, let's say, common people who are not, in the government structures and who are not part of elites. And what does it mean, the consequences of the Brussels Agreement, what does it mean for them? Because, as you will see, some of them were forced in different kind of things because of the strategic consultations and agreements on a top. And this is the fourth part here, intra-ethnic pressure and analysis, and then some concluding thoughts. So, first of all, a little bit of a geographic overview. Kosovo is a part of, nowadays it's independence was declared in 2008. You have it here on the map where it is. So surrounded by the countries which all suffer some kind of instabilities. With respect to the wars of, dissolution of Yugoslavia, especially for those who are not that familiar with this, I would like you to keep in mind a couple of things. In 1991, the dissolution officially started, with Slovenia and Croatia declaring independence from Yugoslavia. So did Bosnia and Herzegovina later on, but it was much more problematic in Macedonia. And these four countries got independence until, so in the period from 1991 until 1995, in different years. However, Kosovo remained without independence, even though the majority of population in Kosovo was of Albanian origin. So they said the majority of Kosovo Albanians in Kosovo felt, they were a little bit envious, in this regard. Everyone, most of the nations in Yugoslavia managed to get away from something they did not want. However, Kosovo still remains under the, what they say, yoke of Belgrade. So under some kind of oppression from Belgrade. Then, also Kosovo Albanians took up the arms, organized guerrilla warfare, and they openly challenged the armed forces, or the state, if you want, of Yugoslavia. There was UČK, Kosovo Liberation Army. So this was like guerrilla group organized. More and more people were joining it, and there was a big, there was actually open scale war between 1998 and 1999. Then a lot of atrocities happened on both sides, even though the international community, and here I mean NATO in particular, and some leading or the most influential states in NATO, they said, okay, we had enough of atrocities, we don't want another Rwanda to repeat or another Srebrenica to appear, we should do something about it. The military intervention was launched, did never receive approval of the Security Council, because the Russian Federation and China did not were not prepared to support it, because Serbia used to be and still is an ally of both countries. But anyway, NATO intervened. The war lasted this military operation lasted until June 1999, when Milošević's regime, Slobodan Milošević, used to be a president of of Yugoslavia. So Yugoslavia had to surrender in 1999, sign an agreement which actually made all institutions of the state to withdraw from Kosovo, from the province of Kosovo. So Serbia, in a way, lost control over Kosovo in June 1999. Of course, vacuum had to be filled, institutional security vacuum, political vacuum in a way, had to be filled somehow, and then scholars not only scholars, I mean, nowadays mostly everyone calls it international protectorate, because a lot of internationals came to the country, different organizations. Each of the organizations was tasked with different thing. For example, the EU came to the place for the economic reconstruction, the United Nations as an umbrella organization, NATO took care of the security issues, and so on. So Kosovo Albanians actually managed to get rid of the state of Yugoslavia and its institutions, but they got another supervisors. The era of international protectorate lasted until 2008, February 2008, when Kosovo declared independence. Even though this kind of, independence was not international, even the big players were not very happy that independence was declared. However, Kosovo Albanians in 10 years or so, 9 years, they developed a lot of institutions and so on, so they did declare independence. Until now, 113 countries recognize independence. What is important to know that 5 countries of the EU do not recognize independence, and these 5 countries are Spain, because of the problems with Catalonia and Basque region. So Spain. Then you have Slovakia, Romania, Greece, and Republic of Cyprus. So 5 countries do not recognize. But here I just like to mention that even though they do not recognize the independence, a lot of them have relations. For example, if you take Greece, they do not have embassy because they don't have officially they don't have diplomatic relations, but they have liaison office, which acts in a way as some sort of yeah. So this is until 2008. Now we come to Kosovo. Even though we said that the certain institutions of the state of Yugoslavia, then it was called Serbia and Montenegro, even though the institutions withdrew from Kosovo, a lot of Serbs remained in Kosovo. Not those who have been involved in in war itself, like as officers or soldiers and so on, but a lot of people remained. And this is the ethnic structure of Kosovo these days. The Serbs live in the northern part of the country. Serbs. What is this color? Some kind of yellowish green color. So they live predominantly in the north, but not only in the north. They also live in some enclaves scattered throughout the central or southern Kosovo. Whereas in the north of the country, the territory is more or less solid in terms of ethnic structure. And then you also have a lot of other minorities. You also have Bosniaks, Gorani minorities, Croats, and so on. Also Turks. Turkish minority is also represented there. And then we, of course, come to the problem. Both Serbs and Albanians claim that this is their country. And these are some photos I have taken a couple of, during my field trips to Kosovo. The Serbs still consider Kosovo as the cradle of Serbia, or the heart of Serbia, because it's undisputed that the state of Serbia back in the medieval times started in. The Serbs became a minority in Kosovo. They became a minority, and they still are a minority. And the international community you have seen various organizations who have been active here in Kosovo since 1999 actually forced the Kosovo Albanians to give rights to minorities, which is, I mean, good. Of course, you cannot debate much on that. Minority rights should be respected. But now I'm just trying to portray in what kind of environment do the Serbs live. For example, if you land on the Pristina is the capital, if you land on the international airport, it's named after Adem Yashari. After Adem Yashari is something which, I mean, I think I can say that the same as if you would say Adolf Hitler for the Jews. So a lot of he was one of commanders of this UČK. You know, during the fight, I mean, the armed struggle, a lot of things happened. Again, on both sides. So you know, he's not something very big symbol for a lot of Kosovo Albanians, not for all of them, but for a lot of them. But you know, having this airport named after him is definitely not welcomed by the Serbs. But on the other hand, here you see, you know, you have this international pressure where you have three languages. So Nisiet is in Albanian, then Serbian language and English. So on one hand, very internationalized thing and minority protection. On the other hand, some very strong elements. So yeah, this is this guy. On the other hand, the Serbs in Kosovo, they, even though constitutionally they are part of, I mean, they are recognized as a, how is it called? So the nation, which is, they say, constitutional nation, and even though Serbian is official language, if you travel around Kosovo, you don't see that much of Kosovar flags. The left one is Kosovo flag, which was again designed by international community to be neutral, because this is like area, so the territory of Kosovo with six stars. 6 stars, meaning that these are different ethnic communities of Kosovo. So very international thing. But you don't see a lot of these kind of flags there, except on official buildings of governments and so on. You see much more of red flags. I mean, you cannot see the black eagle on it, but this is Albanian flag. So the issue for a lot of Kosovo Albanians, they do not identify themselves with the state of Kosovo, but they more identify themselves with the nation of Albanians. So you have this, you know, couple of hats which people put, And so for Serbs, you know, you can imagine that, you know, seeing a country of, I mean, the flag of the country which does not have anything with yours, you would not be that happy to see this. This is another small Google Map experiment which I did. This is the center of Pristina, and just look how the streets, the names of the street. So one of the main boulevards is UČK Street. This is Kosovo Liberation Army Street. You know, think this organization did. You know, they actually managed to get independence, but on the other hand, the repercussions for the Serbs by this very organization were very cruel, actually. So you have this street, UČK Street. Then another military guy, Agim Ramadani, which was killed in the clashes with the Serbs. And the third boulevard, named after Luan Haradinaj, who is brother of he was also killed during the war, the brother of the current prime minister. So a lot of these symbols, a lot of things which are hardly to be welcoming to to the Serbs. Sometimes, I mean, no one considers why the streets could not be named after, I don't know, really neutral things, such as street to the church, or yellow street, or something like that, or maybe after some poets or authors from both sides. No, this is very much guerrilla-sized labeling of the city. And then this is the funny thing, which I also want to tell, just that you will see in what kind of environment people live. So this is European Union office in Kosovo, in Pristina. And when I was there for the first time, I didn't know where it is, and I checked on their webpage, and it says it's Kosovo Street number 1. And I was trying to find it through Google. Where is this Kosovo Street number 1? I couldn't find it. Then I asked a colleague of mine to explain where it is, and he said, it's just behind the parliament, you cannot miss it, it's high, you will see flags and so on. And I went there and see, but I mean, this Učeka Street, so this Kosovo Liberation Army Street, isn't it? Yes, it's Učeka Street. Then what's going on? And then I realized that European Union office did not want to have the delegation on this Kosovo Liberation Army Street, because it's a little bit awkward. So what they did is that the small road, which is maybe 10 meters long, they established a new street and they named it Kosovo Street number 1 in order to be neutral. Yeah. So these are lives of Kosovo. Good. Okay. Yeah. So and then. So these are the things which I already went through. Yeah. Yeah, and now we come to the interesting part of the story. So we have the independent Kosovo, which is gaining international recognitions, slowly but surely. And until 2010, 2011, in Serbia you had there was a pretty much unified position within the political elites that Kosovo should not be recognized by Serbia, and that Kosovo is not a state at all. They are so-called state and things like that. And then the European Union actually realized, I mean, this happened before, of course, but they started to using these carrots in 2011 and 12, when political landscape in Serbia changed. So until these years, you had more these nationalistic parties, let's say, and then here political change happened, and more, let's say, I wouldn't call them more European guys came in power, but some people who have a little bit of disputed past realized, the Serbs, that it might be prudent and wise for them to play this European game, European vocabulary, because it would bring them benefit and it would keep them in power.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you are probably much familiar with this kind of issues also here in Cyprus. So Serbia and the Brussels realized that both Pristina and Belgrade, they both wanted the EU. So what now? Then the things changed for normal, let's say for the common people. The High Representative of the European Union, actually I think, I have this photo here. She managed, Baroness Ashton managed to, play things in that way that the Serbian Prime Minister and the Kosovo Prime Minister, they signed actually the Brussels Agreement, which is meant for the stabilizations of relations between Serbia and Kosovo. And you can see that they do not seem very happy. But still, I mean, it's bad. I mean, they knew that they would get something out of it. So probably the Baroness was the only really happy person in this photo. Yeah, and here things changed. So this is the text of the Brussels Agreement. Don't be afraid. I just want that you remember from this that with the Brussels Agreement, the Kosovo Serbs got some kind of promise that their minority rights would be actually even more protected, and they would have like also political body which would represent their views. And then the very dramatic thing happened with regard to the common people. So Belgrade, the government in Serbia, kept saying to the Serbs until 2011-12 that they should not cooperate with Kosovars, that Kosovo is Serbia, and so on. From this year on, the Serbian government not forced but suggested the Kosovo Serbs to get integrated in the system of the new state. And then, it's kind of cognitive dissonance which happens in a person. If someone is saying 20 years, 30 years, one thing to you, and then he switches
Just the opposite.
Yeah, just the opposite. So people on the very basic level many of them did not know what to do. Some of them were pragmatic and said, okay, if they say that we should cooperate, we will cooperate, and they accepted integration. Of course, the other side, who was more, who kept following this, let's say, nationalistic mode, said, labeled them as collaborators. You are traitors. You do not, you are not Serbs, and so on. And on the opposite, the boycotters, so those who kept boycotting the institutions of the Kosovo state, were labeled by those more pragmatic people that they are nationalists. And the clash then changed. The clash, of course, between the Serbs and Albanians still is and still was the issue back then and still is nowadays. But another clash occurred within the Serbian community. What to do? Either to integrate or to boycott the institutions of the state of Kosovo further. Of course, the EU suggested the people, the Serbs, that they integrate because they believed, I think this is the way forward, that they integrate and they take Kosovo identity cards and so on and try to find a life within this state. This is some illustrations again. So some people kept boycotting further the institutions of the state of Kosovo further, while others accepted the reality. This is the famous or infamous bridge in Mitrovica. Yeah, it's over the. So you have the pretty much similar situation than you have in Nicosia. So one thing which separates both ethnic communities. On the north you have the Serbs, and on the south you have the Kosovo Albanians. There are no United Nations or other kind of troops in between that you would have to show IDs. You can freely walk, but now things changed. But until 5 years ago, you didn't see much people going from one side to the other. I will maybe skip this. And they had to decide whether to cooperate or to oppose cooperation. I claim that for a lot of people this means also psycho-sociological implications for a lot of Kosovo Serbs, because they faced various kind of pressure, not from Albanians anymore, but more from their fellow compatriots Serbs. And that the peace-building success of the EU or common security and defense policy should be reconsidered once again. Of course, from the Brussels, things seem quite normal. They do not fight, it's kind of peace, there are some small incidents, but until the conflict does not spill over the borders, things for Brussels are kind of contained, comparing to the other troubled zones around Europe. Yeah, my claim is that the EU also, I mean, by forging this deal on the strategic level, there were a lot of insecure relations developed in the ground. So for the common people, and with these insecure relations, I will just go through them. I have like 5 minutes more.
10 minutes.
10 minutes more. Okay, good. You're very generous, Itan. Thank you very much. Yeah, and all this intra-ethnic pressure led to innovative forms of what one of these peacebuilding authors, McGuinty, calls everyday peace. So people changed their behavior, how they actually, what they talk about, what the gossips are about, how do they behave in public. So these were the changes. Yeah, so this is just another portrayal or display. So the EU penetrated the area of the Kosovo Serbs in a way with various programs. They offered a lot of incentives, but really a lot of incentives for those who integrated, for those who were prepared to accept that Kosovo is a state. A lot of incentives for them, whereas for them who do not accept this reality, they did not get much chance for funds, projects, and so on. Yeah, so those integrated got money both from the EU through various programs and also from the budget of Kosovo, because now they understood that this is their state. This is their state. The boycotters kept receiving money from Serbia until 2012 or 13, but then when Serbia said that you should integrate, the funds for the Serbs of Kosovo decreased, significantly decreased. So, methodology, how I worked, I will just briefly mention this. I was actually using the snowballing technique because for a lot of people they are very reluctant to talk about these things, because first this touches emotional things, so you have to be really careful about this. And I work usually, I mean, methodologically it's very easy to cut me in pieces, because I rely on a couple of friends now who suggest who are the people that I can talk to, and they then suggest me other people who have faced some kind of pressures and so on. But I think this is the only way how to touch these issues. So I mostly meet people in some places where my interviewees feel secure. These are usually some conversations happen at homes of people, sometimes at their working places after the office hours when everyone leaves, or sometimes we also meet in silent cafes, and then we usually talk in silence. In last 5 minutes I would go through the results, and then I will be happy to elaborate on them. So just remember, you have these two groups. Yeah, and I also have to mention this, that the group of boycotters is decreasing and decreasing. So people are getting integrated more and more, because it's very, very difficult to afford that you boycott institutions. of the state of Kosovo, unless you have some channels, financial channels,
Alternative channels of finance.
alternative channels of finances. The Serbia officially does not give anything to them anymore, so because they say they have to get money and everything to Kosovo. I'm not sure about the Russian element. If there is some money from this, there are really not that much of people nowadays. But a couple of years ago, those who were boycotting the Kosovo institutions, they were living pretty well. They had offices, NGOs, and so on. So between these two groups, you have physical violence and other threats to life and property. Unfortunately, also not only threats to life, but some people were assassinated. One notable politician was actually assassinated a couple of months ago, a Serbian politician, Kosovo Serb politician. So these are visible things. You read about them in media. The way how media portray these things are, of course, different, and it's a little bit touchy, because media frame the things in a way because they are under control of political elites, so they are pretty much cautious what they write. But what is more interesting is this psychological pressure and harassment, which is not evident. You cannot read about it in media, and that's why I work with this snowballing technique. Then the third group would be avoiding integration topics. So they do not talk about these things. This is what I mentioned, McGuinty, one of the authors, as a form of everyday peace. So we can talk about weather, we can talk about the rise of China, about the whales in Australia, but not about things which are very crucial for us. Especially if, for example, your friend or colleague or neighbor has integrated and you have not integrated in the state of Kosovo. And all this leads to the development of distrust in public institutions. People generally do not trust in public institutions, and a lot of so-called insecurity structures develop. With insecurity structures, here I mean, literally, this means some guys, very strong guys, who regularly attend the gym, tall guys driving around in jeeps and very expensive cars, and even though they do not, actually they behave very politely, actually. They seem cool guys, but
Handlers.
Yeah, handlers, yeah, exactly. They are extended hand of political elites who who use these guys to solve things if you do not behave as you should have. For example, now I'll just mention the two more illustrations that you would get a feeling what I'm talking about. For example, I mentioned this bridge in Mitrovica, dividing into two parts. You had the so-called bridge watchers, or they call themselves mostashi. So these were groups of people, some of them strong people, I talked about it earlier, who were not doing anything, just sitting in cafe next to the bridge and looking who is going to the other side and who is coming back, who of the Serbs is going to the other side, who is getting integrated. And they were putting...
These are boycotters, right?
These are boycotters, exactly, yeah. So they were writing things down and reporting to the headquarters. And you never knew who the headquarters was. So to whom do they report to? Yeah. Another illustration about these integration topics. I will tell the story of the father and the son. This son is actually a friend of mine. So the son said, look, I have to get integrated, I have to accept a Kosovo identity card, because without the Kosovo identity card, I cannot apply for a job, I cannot travel, I cannot do anything. And the state of Serbia does not issue identity card for Kosovo Serbs anymore. So either you don't have identity card, or you cannot. You cannot live without it. So this son once challenged his father, who is boycotter, nationalistic guy. Educated but nationalistic in a way. And he said, "Look, father, I'm going to apply for Kosovo ID." And then, of course, father got mad about it. What, you are going to accept the fake state of Kosovo? You are going to recognize them with this if you accept this? And then this guy said, but father, what is my alternative? What can I do? You cannot give me 500 euros per month to live, or 300 to live. And I want to work. And the state of Serbia, does not want me anymore. So what to do? And then, this conversation and fight was going on for a couple of weeks. And then the father and the son stopped talking about the thing. The son accepted obtained the Kosovo identity card. And now they cannot talk about this thing anymore. The father knows about the thing.
They avoid the topic.
Exactly, and they avoid this topic. Yeah, I would stop here. There are a lot of illustrations. I can explain later during the discussion if you are interested. But as you have also said, we can also talk about other things.
Yes.